We've got flags and banners, and if you mind your manners, we might even get to standards and what they represent. So just take my voice's hand and we'll both try to understand how this vexillologic podcast could be flagged for content. Flagged for content.
What's up, Vexheads, and welcome to episode 71 of Flagged for Content. It's the only podcast that cares about all the same things that you do and is with you 100% on that one thing. It's also a Flags for Good podcast, and you can head on over to flagsforgood.com/flagged4content for like the digit, the number, what have you. And you can pick up the flag that's sitting behind me right now. And the topic of this episode, the new flag for Raleigh, North Carolina. You can also pick up a couple of their neighboring cities' flags there, which should kind of give you a hint as to why Raleigh is pushing for a new one. Those other ones have had some good symbols for a minute. And in any case, whatever you get over there, when you go to checkout, use code FLAGGED4CONTENT at checkout. It is, again, flagged for like the number content. You'll get yourself a cool 10% off and help the show out as well. So as always, we appreciate everything Flags for Good does. And it was a lot of fun going up there to open their flagship store in Indianapolis earlier this month. So anyway, thanks as always to them. Not a whole lot to get into up top here. As usual, stick around for the Patreon at the end. Roland and Brian and I went into a little bit extra on there, which I thought was very illuminating. So you can sign up to that. You can go to patreon.com/flaggedforcontent, all spelled out. You know the deal with that. And yeah, this was a very fun one. It was interesting to have two guests on. I don't know. There's historians of the show that would know better than I do, whether that's been the case or not. I know I've had like multiple guests on as far as in different boxes for some panel discussions and, live things, but I cannot recall having two on at the same time, at least for any released episode. There's one sitting in the vaults that I'm still editing that fits that bill as well. But yeah, Roland and Brian really, like, they know their stuff. So most of this is just me kind of getting in questions here and there and them taking it away. And man, I cannot wait to see this effort fully played out. And I hope y'all can't wait to see this episode fully played out. I won't waste any more of your time. Let's go ahead and get into it right now. Vexheads, we've got a couple big names from the community this week. The first one, you may know as the guy who runs the Wild Animals YouTube channel. You know him as the leading expert on kinkajous. And as a world champion unicyclist, it's Roland Kays. What's up, Roland? How's it going?
Hey, great. Thanks for having us on.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. And speaking of the us in that sentence, let's go ahead and get to our other guest. You may know him as a software development manager specializing in anti-financial crime solutions, a world traveler who's visited 47 countries, and, of course, as the designer of the new Raleigh flag, it's Brian Rineer.
Hello. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to see you both. How are things in? I assume you're in Raleigh now?
Yeah, we're downtown Raleigh. It's a beautiful day outside to walk around and see all the flags.
It is.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, you guys are getting the weather I wish we had then. I'm here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, so you may be on the receiving end of this, but hopefully not too bad.
Yeah, whatever weather blows through there, we'll be here tomorrow.
Yep, it usually is. So yeah, and I see you're all merched up. I see the flag behind you. You got the shirt, got the hat.
Yep.
You guys, this is probably not the first time you've done any kind of, press for this, I imagine.
We've been lucky. We've had some.
Yeah, we're trying to get the word out. My favorite was riding around on my unicycle with the big flag.
Yeah. That's a fantastic way to combine those interests.
We had a PR stunt. We went to city council for our public comment session, had a little band, and had some unicyclists and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, we've had some other press. Been on TV a few times here. Been in the papers. a lot of local bloggers writing about us. So it's definitely been getting out there.
Yeah. I saw. I was on your website earlier. Obviously, kind of doing my research as you will, and there was a couple news stories that I saw, like the video news stories. One illustrated a point that we'll definitely get to, which was it was not a windy day when they were filming it, and the current Raleigh flag was outside one of the buildings, and we'll definitely get to that. Speaking of flagpole,
Brian's got a trick for that.
Oh yeah,
he brings along a leaf blower when we're doing pictures.
yeah,
that's what you have to do.
That works. Yeah, as long as it's reachable anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Speaking of flagpoles, though, let's go over what's on the flagpole for today's episode. We've got our usual, well, more or less usual under and overrated flags. As predicted, we'll talk mostly about the effort to get a new flag for Raleigh, working our way through the classic reporters' questions of who, what, when, where, why, how. And we'll see if we can't compare and contrast this effort to a few others going on around the country. So we've got a lot on our plate today. And guys, before we get to any of that, I like to ask my guests, what's a flag that got you into flags?
Good. Let me start?
Yeah.
For me, it was the current, what I'm going to call the 1960 Raleigh flag. Not because it's a favorite flag, but because just owning it and seeing people's reactions to it and learning about it, that's what got me hooked and ultimately led some of us to pick up this effort to try to get a new one.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it was the Chicago flag. I lived in Chicago for a year and really loved the city and loved the flag as a symbol. I have a shirt with the flag on it. And that kind of got me excited. And then, I'm a zoologist. And so my most recent favorite flag, it wasn't the successful winner, but when Minnesota had a contest for the new state flag.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Someone had this amazing loon design that had like a real close up of the loon's face, and the bill of the loon like separated the two colors.
Yeah.
And the spotting on the neck was symbolic of I think the stars or something like that. I just thought that was, there are flags that have animals on it, and usually it's some stag, old school stag. And I just thought this was a really clever modern use of an animal on a flag. And I was bummed that it didn't win, but that's my favorite modern flag, other than the new Raleigh flag, of course.
Sure. Obviously. Yeah, I think there were quite a few loon ones. Did you see the laser loon one as well?
The laser loon, I like that a lot as well. Obviously, it was never going to win. I thought the other loon actually had a chance of winning, but it wasn't in the top.
Yeah, the laser loon was like the Bodie McBoatface of,
Exactly.
Yeah,
for sure.
That and the one where it was just a picture of somebody's dog or whatever. It's fun too.
That's what you get when you open it up to comments.
Yeah, so like mixed bag as far as like design wise, like with you guys saying the 1960 Raleigh one and the Chicago one kind of just goes to show, like, if you love like where you live, if you love the area enough, you're going to look up and see what is that flag. If it's a good flag, you're going to find merch of it, like Roland has. Like, I guess you've got a long history of wearing flags on shirts now. And if it's less successful from a design point, it's still going to get you interested, even if you maybe can't find quite as much merch. So yeah, I mean, that's we get all kinds of answers, and I love a good local one, like hyper local one too. So awesome. Well, so did you guys bring any underrated, overrated ones that we can talk about?
We can do that. What do you want first?
Brian, if you've got whatever you've got, over or under, go for it.
I'll go underrated. So this is one I think people don't think about a lot. It was kind of hard for me to pick this, but if I was going to say an underrated flag, I'm going to go with the flag of Austria. And you might guess why. All right, so it's not a super exciting flag, and there's a lot of tri-bands out there, and people may look at it and think, okay, that's their colors, and they just put the stripe on it, whatever. But if you know the legend, which you probably do, of the Leopold, right? So
pretend that I don't.
All right. So right. So in the 12th century, when the Austrians, it was Leopold V, I think, they're fighting a battle
Mm-hmm.
and he had a white tunic. Okay, and he was out all day in this, gruesome battle. Came back completely covered with blood. His tunic was stained white, but when he took off his sword belt had left a line across his tunic that was white. So they then took that and kind of made it into their standard and their banner, and eventually became the flag. Now that is a legend anyway. So I don't know if anybody has direct evidence of that, but that's what's passed down. So if you know that symbolism, then it's really cool. You take their like kind of simple design that some people might think is boring, but if you know how it got there, then it seems really cool. That's why I think it's underrated.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, the Austrian one doesn't get nearly as much shine as the, I think, pretty similar Latvian one. I mean, similar in several ways. Do you know that one?
Yep, sure.
Yeah, it's it's a darker. I think it even comes from like there's a similar legend around it with the blood stained, and then I don't know if it's a belt in their case or whatever, but I feel like Austria doesn't get nearly as much kind of attention. Underrated is exactly how I would word it. Yeah, I can't remember, because I know Austria used to use like the black and gold, like the black and yellow, like in their heraldry. And then what'd you say it was? King Leopold
V, I think,
fifth,
who came up with this new
so yeah, I guess like
symbol.
somewhere around then is where that changed. Did not know that.
Yep.
That is cool.
He's got a good second.
Another one. So
yeah. So let's go into it.
I don't know if you want to keep going, but just a second underrated flag. I really love the flag of Turkey.
Okay.
Simple again, but the way I think the designer put some really brilliant elegance into this. Like if you look at the tips, you probably have one. The tips of the moon, the way they slightly rotated the 5-pointed star in there, so it looks like the tips are like lined up with the points at the crescent. It almost looks like it's kind of dancing there. So it's a really cool idea to build it that way. And then I've been to Turkey a couple times, and their flag is everywhere. And in Istanbul, you can look around and you're just sitting there by the Bosphorus and look across the river, and there will be a huge flag on a flagpole on the top of a hill on the other side, fluttering in the breeze. And so it's literally a big red flag that just grabs your attention. You see them all over the place. The branding is great. That is kind of like something we're trying to achieve with the new Raleigh flag. So I thought I'd put that out there because I may be citing that later.
I was going to say, so far we've gone over 2 flags that are majority red with white.
Yeah, good point.
Imagine that.
You've got to type. I know this is we'll go into the design notes in a bit. But all right, any other like favorites, overrateds, underrateds, any other ones you guys want to get kind of touch on here in this first little bit before we dive in?
Do you want to go over
I think you've got an overrated, don't you? What's your overrated?
I don't know what people think about this. If I had to pick one overrated, I would say Colorado. Because I say overrated because I know people love it.
Yeah.
I just don't like I don't like flags that have 2 metals usually, but also I don't like flags that have letters on them. They use a letter to represent it because it's so arbitrary. Like, okay, it happens to start with a C. Some people love the C on the flag, but to me, it's like, oh, well, your thing or your place happened to start with that letter. What if everybody did that? So anyway, if I had to nitpick something that I think is super popular, that's what I'd come up with. Yeah,
no, that's fair. That definitely is a very I mean, I think it's consistently top 5 in any kind of rating, whether it's like ratings by vexillologists or just public opinion type stuff. That one always comes in very high. I do like, my only gripe with it, I like it. I think if you're gonna do a letter on a flag, I think it incorporates it really well as a design element. It is still so obviously a C for Colorado, which is a little hokey, I guess, but I don't know. I think it does it well, and I just wish that the kind of like points of the C lined up with where the blue and white go vertically, because the C like kind of comes up like a little bit too far in, but the Flags for Good version one, they just like slightly tweaked it, and I think that makes a world of difference. But
all right, fair enough.
Anyway, we have not had Colorado being overrated. We definitely haven't had it being underrated for the obvious reasons that a lot of people like it, but I think normally when we've talked about it, it's been as a favorite. So yeah.
So do you end up getting hate mail on the Overrated?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so do the guests. So,
Oh, get ready. Great.
It's yeah. Get ready. We'll have your contact info come up on the screen right here.
That's right.
No, no, we do get like I'm always glad for any comments, on the YouTube or on the audio. And people, tend to feel pretty strongly when their flag is viewed less favorably, I guess, more so than the opposite. But that's the internet and just life. All right. So, any more flags to talk about here in this first part?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right. So, we've got a little bit more time before we need to hit an ad break. So let's go ahead and delve on into it. Yeah, let's start at the start. What got the kind of gears going, the wheels turning on why you wanted to do this in the first place, Brian?
Yeah. So I wish I could take full credit for it, but there's been a lot of people involved. Fair to say, I think I've led the most recent effort, and there have been people who, in previous times, have tried to get a new flag in Raleigh, and they kind of fizzled. With this latest one, the COVID, it was really a pandemic project, so COVID had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
So I had owned, my wife and I and our kids moved into a new house downtown here in Raleigh. We had lived kind of out in the suburbs for a long time. Moved downtown, had a flagpole, have front porch on the little cottage there, had a flagpole. And you talked about, it's cool, talking about and maybe owning hyper local flags. A lot of people, of course, fly the U.S. flag. That's great. A lot of people here fly the North Carolina flag, which you got up behind you. That's very popular here as well. There weren't that many people flying the Raleigh flag, which I think we're going to talk about why in a minute. I didn't actually even know we had one. And my wife told me, yeah, they have one. You can see it down in the museum. And so she got me one as a gift. I think it was a Christmas gift.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I put it up. Okay, good. So I thought this was so cool. So I put the Raleigh flag out. And because it was COVID, we couldn't really hang out indoors with people. So we sat outside on our porch. And when people would come by, they'd look at the flag and say, what is that? What flag is that? And these are people who even lived in Raleigh their whole life, some of them. And just didn't even really know about it. That got me kind of thinking about it and asking questions and doing some research online and connecting with people and learning about the history of this flag and why it really hasn't been very widely used here. And then we started thinking about what to do about it. So that's kind of the background on why I got involved, and Roland shortly after that when I started talking to him about it, and then a few other people around here as well.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, like so many things. I mean, this podcast technically I started in 2022, but it was more or less a pandemic project. And I know my sponsor, Flags for Good, they started up in 2020 out of similar origins. So yeah, that was definitely yeah. It makes sense seeing it on the porch, and I imagine, like, is it mostly only kind of at government buildings currently?
If that. Some
okay.
of them don't even fly it. There's some city buildings here that just fly the U.S. flag and the North Carolina flag.
Right.
There are a few. It's at the train station. It's at one of the parks. But yeah, it's not widely adopted.
Gotcha. Okay. And
this was the other part of the pandemic aspect is without being able to go out and do normal activities, some of us had extra time on our hands to sit around and surf the web and go down rabbit holes. So that's when I and some others started kind of learning about the 1960 flag and learning about flag design principles, learning about what people had tried to do before, and then coming up with this new initiative.
Right. So, okay. So you're like surfing the web. What is it? Did anything specific that you kind of stumbled across that?
Yeah, I discovered that there was already a lot of chatter online a few years before about the Raleigh flag. And apparently it's come up every so often for a little while. People just saying, nobody really knows about this thing because of the design, because it's kind of complex. It's not really that unique. It's just not something you're not going to see it on a shirt. You're not going to see it flying at everybody's house. There's some things about it. As you know, it's a double-sided flag. Right? So the obverse and the reverse have different imagery.
Yeah. So go into the design of it for
Why don't we do that?
for the
Do you want
listeners.
to talk about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, so part of it was just that it was designed by committee, which that's just like, I feel like that must be like violation number one. If you're going to design something, like when you design by committee, you end up with something that's generally not very universally good.
And I feel like you can just see it when you look. It has two different things on two sides. It seems like there's probably factions on the committee who couldn't agree on what they wanted, so they compromised and put two things on it. But I want to tell you something that I don't even know if most people around here realize or think about, which is not only was it designed by committee, but it was not designed. It was not intended to be a city flag.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Okay, so are you ready? You ready to go?
I think so.
Do you want me to take it, or you want to?
Yeah, no, it's you.
Okay. So to understand the history of this flag, you have to go back all the way to 1899. Okay. So Spanish-American War. There's a ship, the USS Raleigh. And I'm going to forget. I have to look it up what class it was, but it's a battleship. It was in the Philippines, saw action in the Spanish-American War in the Philippines. Apparently, it distinguished itself over there, the ship and its crew. The people in Raleigh just followed its exploits in the newspapers. Okay, so they kind of knew about what the ship was up to.
Right, yeah.
And the war wound down. Ship came back to the United States, got back to the East Coast. And then it was making its way down the East Coast, like just kind of doing a little tour and putting in different ports for maintenance and just saying hello to people and letting people visit it, whatever. And so the town officials at the time, so it wasn't councils, aldermen, found out that the ship was going to put in Wilmington, North Carolina, for a few days. So they had a little notice on this and decided, we want to go down there with a delegation and thank the crew for representing the city,
the namesake,
and they wanted a gift, something about Raleigh to give to the crew. Well, what do you give? What can you put on a ship? Like, there's very limited space.
What do you give the ship that has everything?
Yeah, right. And there's not like a lot of wall space on a ship, so they couldn't give them a big painting or piece of art in that form.
Yeah.
And what else can you do? So they decided to make a piece of art in the form of a flag. When you do that, then they could put it on a pole, in one of the cabins, whatever, and they could pull it out and like look at it and appreciate all the detail in it. And then when they want it out of the way, just fold it up and put it in a drawer.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So it was a good thing. It was just kind of a novelty thing for them to do. So they put together this committee, and you ended up with the two sides.
Last words. Yeah.
One thing I think they really got right is they picked the two themes that really kind of represent Raleigh. So
because you said it's two-sided. So
so each side has something different. Now,
so what's the one side? I don't even know which one to start with.
City of Oaks. Maybe you can fill in on that.
Well, yeah. Just so I mean, we call Raleigh the City of Oaks. There are a lot of oak trees. We have a giant acorn on New Year's that like drops down, and so that's our ball.
Oh, that's awesome.
We sort of identify as an oak tree city. And so they have on one side is an oak tree and some other sort of design elements around that. And so they got that. And then the other side is more of a connection to Sir Walter Raleigh, the sort of namesake of the city, and some of the heraldry associated with that. And Brian's probably better to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. It's his achievement, not with supporters, but it has his escutcheon, so the arms, and then his motto and his crest, which is a deer. So that's what they put on the reverse. Now, one quick add-on to the story about the tree. If you look, and I'm sure you will, we're looking at a picture of it right here on the other screen, but I'm sure you'll show your viewers. That tree that you see now, that's not the original. That's not what was on that 1899 piece of art. the artist, they hired a local artist. She was here at a local college, Meredith College.
Mm-hmm.
She painted a scene of an oak tree, and I think she painted on Raleigh, North Carolina, maybe with a date. And that was later replaced. We're going to get to that part. But what you're looking at now is a more modern, or it was as of 1960, a modern reproduction. It's actually,
okay, right.
Actually, the city seal.
So that's why you call this the 1960 flag?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so let's go forward.
Or is that, am I jump? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. So they hired someone to make this painting, and the funny part is she didn't finish it in time, so they had to go down to
I know the
Wilmington,
feeling.
like empty-handed, and tell them, "Oh, we're making you this flag," And there's no evidence to show that the flag ever made it onto the ship, because the ship left.
Okay.
It was decommissioned later. Now, it may have gotten to the ship later somehow, but they definitely didn't have it there at that first kind of ceremonial meeting and thank you thing. Which is kind of funny. So she made two. So it's the history which we can find in our city museum. So she made the original one for the gift, and then she made a second, or she painted a replica of it.
Right.
That's it. So that was intended as a gift, might have never reached the intended recipient. Then it sat in a box in storage in City Hall for 60 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in 1960, when City Hall was moving, someone was clearing out storage, found this thing in a box in a basement, and some historian knew what it was and told the story. And that's when the council at the time decided, oh, well, we don't have a flag. I guess this is our flag. And so they made the adjustment of, like, they had someone kind of illustrate the coat of arms, not exactly like the painting, but very close to the painting on the original one. And they used the city seal, which also has the oak tree and the oak laurels. And they used that as the obverse of the flag. So they decided to keep it as a double-sided flag and make it our official flag.
And the seal's just hideous. Like the color, it's like it's got these bright greens and yellows that don't match with the dark red at all. So it's just kind of a nice. Honestly, I feel like if they had just done the seal on both sides, it would be okay. It wouldn't be great, but it would be okay. But that seal with the little words that you can't read. Arms, just a coat of arms wouldn't have been so bad.
Yeah.
But
agreed on that.
The seal.
Here's what I think is funny about that too. If you look at it from a distance, especially if it's moving, it's not even unique because it looks kind of like the flag of Peru.
Okay, I was gonna say, as a like kind of behind the scenes, like whatever type thing, when I was asking both of them like what flags to fly in the back or to put in the background, they're like, if you have the flag of Peru, the one that's got like the seal in the middle, throw that up. I'll explain why later. And I didn't really think that much of it because I don't own that one. But then I started to kind of think of why, and I saw the current Raleigh flag, and I was like, oh, that's exactly why they wanted to know.
I saw something on Reddit.
I had that,
which is someone wrote, hey, like they moved here and for an embarrassingly long time, like a few years, because they had seen this flag a few places. And they thought Raleigh must have a large contingent of Peruvian immigrants, which we don't. And then they finally learned that, no, that's actually the official flag of Raleigh. If you look at it closely, it's different. So, that we should point out that Peru actually changed their flag. They made it simpler and took the facing emblem off of it. So that's actually, this makes it even kind of more funny.
Oh my God. All right. Well, on that fun little tidbit, it might be a good time to take an ad break. When we come back, I mean, more on the Raleigh flag, the efforts. More with Roland and Brian when we get back. All right, Vexheads, we are back. More here with Roland Kays and Brian Rineer. Brian, we've heard a lot about the kind of, the impetus behind what got you started, everything in 2020, and what the current design is. Roland, I'm curious, like, what's your role in this? How did you get kind of roped into this?
Yeah, well, so Brian and I are friends for a long time. And so during COVID, while he was playing around with new designs, he'd send me, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And just kind of, point it out. And I think he sent me a TED Talk or something like that, kind of more about flag design. I hadn't
Yeah.
been sort of super into flag design as like a thing. I like flags, but I hadn't paid a whole lot of attention. And so
Mhm.
that's when I kind of realized, like, oh my God, our flag kind of sucks.
Yeah.
The existing Raleigh flag, and I that's not something I would fly. And so I was kind of all 100% behind it. Like, yeah, let's get a better design. And I think we should talk about the design that Brian came up with.
Yeah.
And what's behind that. But once we kind of had that, it was like, well, here's a symbol that people can get behind. And so,
Yes.
in terms of the process, definitely looking at what other cities had done to get a new flag. Like, how does that even happen? And we weren't in a huge rush, and thought it would, like, let's just see if it has any legs, right? And so, see if people like it, see if people will fly it, and see if you fly it, if other people notice, right? And so I had one, on our house, and our neighbors noticed, and they're like, "Hey, that's a cool flag. What is it?" And be like, "Oh, it's tell them the story and sort
Mhm.
of the whole thing of like, well, did you know, it's not the actual official flag. Do you know what the official flag looks like? No, I don't. And wow, this is really cool. So, they got behind it. And one of my neighbors happened to have some experience on city council and on the city arts council and stuff like that. And so
Yeah.
she gave us some good advice, and some other people as well. And Brian was, started again, just kind of low level, like giving out some free flags to bars and talking to restaurants and talking to other people. And there was just like a lot of support for the new design, for the new symbol, that like
Right.
kind of realized, yeah, we don't really have a good Raleigh symbol. This one looks great. Let's move on from here and see if we can make it official.
Yeah, yeah, and something like that you kind of touched on there too, or that you touched on in a big way, is having a symbol as well as a flag. Like when I was designing the flag for my show, for example, I know it's important for like, a brand for like marketing stuff. Not only is it a flag, but there needs to be some kind of element from that you can take. Like it works on a hat, it works on a shirt, it works like as a circular sticker, a square stick, you can put it kind of everywhere.
Yep.
It's adaptable with different, colors, for sports teams, etc. Which
that's definitely something we were going for with this design.
yeah, like so now that we've touched on that, let's go into the design itself. Brian, if you want to kind of walk us through the process here and the end result.
Yeah, so when we started looking at things online, quickly found, there were a number of people who we didn't even know, because these are just anonymous, like Twitter and Reddit
Sure,
handles.
yeah.
But there was a lot of complaints, and there was a movement, and actually one of our city councilors a few years before Twitter had raised it to the rest of council about, hey, like we should do something, get a new flag, and it kind of fizzled out. It didn't go anywhere. The local paper put out an editorial saying, we have too much else going on. Don't waste time on that. Why are they talking about it? It's not important.
Right.
City council
Taxpayer
said
money,
they're not
etc.
interested. It just kind of died. So we knew it was going to be an uphill battle. So we thought, okay, what we need to try to do is stick with the existing symbolism on the current flag. Even though a lot of people don't know about the current flag, they do know about that symbolism.
Yeah.
City of Oaks and Walter Raleigh.
Yeah.
So right there, we had a kind of a starting point. We weren't starting completely from scratch with no ideas. We wanted to keep those two themes and weave them into one flag design, if we could do it and still come up with something good. And we thought we'd have a better chance of getting people on board if we did it that way.
Yeah.
So we basically had the colors picked out. And right away, and I know, like you said, you're going to have a lot of heraldry fans who are your listeners. So they're going to understand that if we want to keep any elements of the coat of arms, well, probably that's going to be the arms itself. Now, some people say, well, why don't you use the deer or whatever? Okay, but we decided to keep the escutcheon, or we got there, I would say. We didn't start with that, but we got there. And then that kind of means, well, that part has to be red. If you change that color, it's no longer Walter Raleigh's coat of arms. And heraldry fans will understand that. Okay?
Makes sense.
So the flag was going to be red, but also Raleigh's color really is red. Like, I mean,
So in North Carolina, in center of Raleigh, we have Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, three cities that are very close to each other that have three universities. Raleigh has NC State. which is the colors of NC State are red and white. And then if you go to Duke and UNC, those are two different blue colors. So we definitely weren't going to use blue.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
The fact that the old flag was already red and whatever, people already kind of are, pro red. So red was the color for Raleigh.
Yeah,
so that was maybe the easiest part.
Yeah, and Charlotte is green. So starting from scratch, I bet a lot of people say, well, let's make something green, but Charlotte's green. So we don't want to duplicate Charlotte's color. But yeah, we have NC State. We also have the Carolina Hurricanes. So there's a lot of people who's already wearing red stuff, maybe flying red flags. They have NC State or Hurricanes, like sports flags. So we thought that works. Right?
Okay.
And probably the reason why a lot of that stuff is red is maybe because of the original flag and the coat of arms. So we knew we were going to stick with red. Then
probably
we thought it would be a good idea to just like keep it as simple as possible. Just following all the principles that are going to be well known to your audience. Okay, how do we keep it as simple as we can? We know it's going to be somewhat complex if we try to have two themes in it instead of one. But let's not go crazy. Let's try to keep the colors limited at least. All right, so then you get into, okay, what do we do? How do we capture both City of Oaks and Walter Raleigh in this flag? So we're thinking, okay, well, if it was just Walter Raleigh, maybe we just put the diamonds on and bend, meaning, in the diagonal, and just call it a day and you're done. And that's a simple flag and it's easy, right? But then you lose City of Oaks. Okay, well, what if we put an oak tree on it? Well, oak trees look cool. Everybody would get that. But
oak trees just kind of look like trees.
Well, that's the thing. So if you didn't know, if you didn't know it was an oak tree, then you would just see a tree. There's other issues with it though. One is like construction cost, which is like it's hard. First of all, it's hard to standardize. How do you get the oak tree to look the same?
Right.
I mean, someone draws it.
Your neighboring state of South Carolina still hasn't figured out how to standardize their.
But that's another thing I was going to say. We already have a very popular flag in our region with a tree as the main chart.
That as well.
Flag.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be unique. The acorn is like Roland was saying. The acorn, it's a kind of a funny thing, but also seriously too. Like people love the acorn around here. It's
get why.
Buildings. We have the acorn statue downtown. All that. So, so we were thinking about, okay, well, what if we do like the diamonds and then we put a tree? And it's kind of maybe just luck, I guess. But the fact that in Walter Raleigh's coat of arms, those diamonds appear in bend rather than say like in bend sinister, that meant, okay, the canton's already taken up. So you can't put, because we were thinking about what if we put like a tree or an acorn or something in the canton and then had the diamonds, but then you have to reverse the direction and then that's not Walter Raleigh's coat of arms anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. See where we're going? So it almost shows itself, to be honest, because then we start thinking, well, what if we use like 5 acorns? Or what if we had 5 diamonds, but the middle one was an acorn? And actually, remember, like there were some sketches we had to that, and they looked ridiculous. So
yeah, I do like hearing about the ones that could have been.
But, well, they didn't stand much chance, I think.
Okay,
but so one day, I was sending a lot of different prototypes, I'll say, around to different friends. Roland was one of them. There's an artist named Julie who's a friend that she gave a lot of input on this.
Well, his sons are both artists, designers as well.
So one of my sons actually did the illustration, the artwork. Because my sons both studied.
So the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree, I guess, in this case.
Okay.
All right.
We see why you're in the business. Okay. So he was at the time. He's graduated now, but he was a student studying digital animation at Savannah College of Art and Design. And so I got him to like try different things and send them out to people. And I don't even remember when or why, but at one point it finally hit us like, what if the diamonds were just on the acorn? Which totally makes sense because then you can stylize it a little bit and then it looks like a shield.
Yeah.
So so from there you can see then it was just minor tweaking, and that's how we got where we are.
Yeah, it's so brilliant. Like it took me too long probably to realize that, like, oh man, like obviously a lot of thought went into this, but like it's such an easy like when you see it kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like it should be obvious.
Yes.
It wasn't though. All right. It took like a month at least.
I knew it was
get the idea.
heraldic, etc. Yeah, but once I saw that, that part of the acorn looks exactly like a shield. I see what you did there.
All right.
Got
So
it.
once that clicked, then, like I said, we had a lot of input from Julie, who's an artist, and some other people, and we kind of like just tweaked, rounded a little more to the shield shape to make it a little more like a shield. An acorn is a little more squared off, a real acorn. So it's not 100% biologically or anatomically correct,
right.
But then we had to also round the cap a little bit, but that's kind of cool because it, for some reason, makes you sort of think of like an Elizabethan sort of like headwear or something. I don't know. And a lot of people say that. I wouldn't have put that into words until someone else said it way later. But it just sort of looks like appropriate to the period of Walter Raleigh. I think it was Julie's idea maybe to break the stem off instead of having that be one piece with the cap because it just was too heavy looking. And there's side benefits too. Like, okay, maybe only people like your audience might appreciate this, but like you can cut, if you're doing an applique flag, you can cut the stem out of the remnant that's cut out of like the negative space inside the acorn frame. So that saves a little money, stuff like that. So it was just really, really, really minor tweaking, a lot of back and forth. And then we had something to try. Now, that's the design. I'm going to talk about what we did with it, unless you have more design questions.
No, I mean, I would love to, just like go straight on into that.
All right. So do you remember those Reddit posts and Twitter posts from like 7 or 8 years ago with the squirrels and all the, all right. So,
on our vexillology.
Yeah. So, right. And on Twitter here, local, like kind of So what we thought was we're just kind of goofing around and we want to restart the conversation. Yeah. Because like I said, it had been out there, it had fizzled away, but we had a new council. It's a new time. Like maybe we can get some traction again.
Right.
And if we have something that looks half decent, we can put that up and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? And maybe that'll just get the conversation going. But the more we looked at it and showed it to people, people said, that's really cool. Like we were getting almost universal positive feedback on it. So that's when we decided, like Roland was saying, let's just try it. Just fly some.
Yeah.
So we said, so we had this nice design. We got a lot of sort of initial early encouragement. And so, then it came to, okay, let's actually make this a movement. Right. And let's try to get some ground support and because before you can't just like show up at city council and say like, hey, here's the new flag. And so like, well, let's, we think that it's got the legs to run. Let's see how it does. And so we started flying it ourselves. Brian got some little ones to share with people who were excited about it, started selling them online, eventually started getting some stores to sell them. I think there's now, I think Brian's sold at least 150, but then there's other stores selling them as well. So there's hundreds of flags out there now, in a couple of years that are flying at houses, at local businesses, local restaurants and bars. Some folks have taken the design and already started using it in their own artistic representation. There's some firehouse that made a little coin, actually celebrating their firehouse that's got the acorn on it.
Oh, that's awesome!
Already, so it's like we're already getting derivative products.
Yes, yeah.
People are excited enough about it to say, yes, this is cool. We think this represents Raleigh to the extent that a fire station that's the city, one of the city fire stations is using it as their icon as well. So we think that's got that was really great. Showed that yes, this is worth pursuing, and I think also showed city council that okay, there is now actually a kind of a groundswell of support for this. It's not just one or two people that are pushing this idea, and so I think that helped us get some conversations and actually get the issue in front of city council, as well as Brian, kind of beating the bushes and getting the communications with the individual council people as well.
Yeah. So did either of you prior to this have any experience dealing with city council, like not for flag related things, but like trying to get any kind of resolutions or any kind kind of local ordinance stuff, anything like that?
Not at all.
And that's what we say. Like, how are we going to do this? Like, we really think this is a good idea. how are we going to end it? So it was very gradual and very
So
grassroots. We have no marketing experience at first. Now, what happened though is other people, when they heard about the idea, wanted to join the effort.
yes.
So one thing we didn't even talk about is the website, newraleigflag.com. But so there was a friend who has the skills to do web development, and I was showing him the designs really early on, and he loved it and said, I want to do something. I want to help. And he made the website for us. Now, he didn't write all the content. Some of us, the rest of us contributed like with the actual words and pictures and things, but he put it together, put a ton of work into it. He also did other things, procurement or fulfillment of flag orders. And it's just kind of like, volunteerism. Another person, one of my neighbors, someone she works with, they're in a marketing company, found out about it, looked at the website, looked at our social, which isn't even really that active, and said, you know what, I want to help them. I think they could use some help. Because have we talked about branding? So I don't know if you know, do you know, this is another thing. We've learned a ton on this, right? So many aspects of this project.
I can tell.
But if you look at marketing, like brand archetypes, I'd never heard of that. Okay. And I guess it showed to marketing people because they were looking at our website and the messaging and the things we were doing. And so I remember having lunch, there were three of us, and this person was explaining, okay, you have a product, it's cool, but your branding, you've basically been using, I think what you would call like the rebel or outlaw brand archetype, which is like, hey, you're kind of like, the rebel, you're the babel, you're going against the grain, you're whatever.
Okay,
right.
I get what you mean.
This is like the Andre Agassi kind of like, that kind of marketing stuff.
Yes.
We didn't know that, but yeah, that's what we're doing. Say, hey, like this is way better than the current flag. Like, let's go.
We're the cool new kid on the block.
Yeah.
Like, we're edgy and new.
But what she said is, you can get so far with that, but why are you doing this? And so we said, because the current flag just isn't that good and nobody knows about it. She said, yeah. But why do you care about a flag?
Yeah.
Right. So once you like zoom out to that, it's like, okay, it's civic pride, right? It's the Chicago flag, it's symbolism. It's,
and that's just a bigger tent, right? There's the rebel connects with a certain group of people, but it also repels another group of people that are like, wait a second, tradition. And that don't want a new, even if the old flag isn't that great, some people are resistant to that, and it kind of brings up some of that. Whereas if it's the civic pride is I think has a sort of a campaign and like you said, like a marketing attitude that has a bigger tent.
And that's really what we're after. Yeah.
Everyone lives somewhere, and everywhere has a flag. Like everyone cares about flags. They just sometimes need a little bit more, I don't know, time to unlock that, or a little bit more push in the right direction to unlock that. Sometimes a lot of it's reactionary. Like nobody cares about the flag until it's going to be changed to this new woke one, like in the case of Utah or whatever. So, okay, people who never talked about flags suddenly care a whole hell of a lot about flags.
Yeah.
But it's awesome to unlock that in such a positive way. Like it sounds like you've done with the brand, with just like the engagement, volunteerism, kind of like bottom up groundswell of it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, everyone's, if you're proud of your city, you want a good flag, in this case, logo, what have you, to identify with it. And
and when
you nail it, people will naturally kind of flock to that, and then it can only grow, I think, from there.
That's right. And there is a lot of civic pride here, and there has been this has uncovered a latent desire for some kind of symbolism.
Yes,
to show off that civic pride. So,
and a lot of
answer the question you were asking, which is like, do we have any like content? No, like we're not involved in any local politics or anything like that. But along the way, people got involved who are, and kind of were able to advise or make connections or make introductions, and just that networking. So the power of networking is another thing we learned.
Yeah,
just getting it in front of people and getting awareness. And we kind of build up and build a strategy then for just like the more aggressive, like more talking to people, getting it very gradually in front of people who may eventually be decision makers, until that culminated about it's been 6 months now, but things move slowly in government at all levels. But we did then officially take it forward in a public comment session. Like we said, had a little PR stunt there. People gave some speeches, and that generated some additional press. And that's just kind of our process. I think most cities work like that. That's the way you officially bring forward a request or an idea proposal. Did it publicly because that's, you're there in the city hall talking on the stump. Now, since then, we had that was in October last year. So we had elections. We had a couple of new councilors, including a new mayor, were seated. And in December, then we had holidays, and then beginning of this year, the first quarter, a lot of it was tied up, and there was already some other big cases in front of council, the big decisions they had to make on other issues, budget season. But I think we're now about at the point. I heard this is unofficial, okay, but we'll still tell you anyway that we think within the next few weeks this is going to be formally taken up and discussed by council here.
Okay, that is big news. Yeah, let's get into that. Let's take one more break before we do get into that. But yeah, I think that's going to be a fun, cool way to kind of close this out, as it were, or at least, yeah.
Are you interested in the weird, the occult, or the anomalous?
How does a comedic and supernatural spin on history sound?
We're popping up here to tell you about our podcast, Supernatural Selection, a weekly dive into all things weird with professional amateurs.
We research and uncover fascinating things about our often spooky and strange history and share them with you a couple of hours at a time.
Like, did you know that in 1955, a farmhouse in Kentucky was besieged for a night by extraterrestrial goblins?
Or that the Mothman is still being cited to this very day?
And that the craziest thing published online very well may be Time Cube?
If you want more than deep dives into strange topics, we also have our Weekend Weird episodes.
All the weirdest and buck-wild news we can find on the web delivered hot to you.
Plus, as a bonus, we have a weekly dive into pop culture with our other show, The Distraction Hole.
Because, well, you shouldn't work all the time.
So, if you want to give the show a try, hit up supernatpod.rocks and add the show to your favorite podcatcher or stream right on site. 2 great shows, 1 feed.
Join us, won't you?
Or you'll be sorry.
Remember, that is supernatpod.rocks for an immature audience. Don't let your mom know we're doing this.
Okay, back here, the final part 3. So as just mentioned before the break, things are moving forward, and Brian, you were just about to go into kind of the next steps as far as the council and all that goes. What's going on next?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you take it.
Well, so the point is, we went to the public comment period and had a number of people speak about why we think there should be a new flag.
Yeah,
and that was coming after there'd been a variety of discussions with certain city council people and other people kind of, so they knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that kind of launched it onto their more forward facing agenda. And so there's been some other things going on, but it looks like it's now like on the agenda for them to discuss as a formal thing. And, how exactly this goes next, we don't know. They could just decide they're going to adopt the acorn flag and then we're done. Or they could decide that, yes, we think we should have a new flag, but that there'll be a process for it that, might, and this is what a lot of other folks have done, right? Other cities and states have sort of invite a lot of people to submit, and then usually there's some council, so they don't get another Bodie McBoatface. So we don't know which way they're going to go. We'd be happy with either. I kind of joke around with Brian that I hope they do the invitation, because I've got this cardinal flag design that's going to be like the loon. Cardinals are bird. It's also red, so I'm going to put in a little competition. And cardinals also eat acorns, so I think it's a smash. It's totally good.
That would be awesome. Yeah. So okay. So when it comes to them, what are they looking at? Are they just kind of looking at like a proposal, or do they vote on, like you said, basically how to move forward? Like there's
Yeah,
not like a cut and dry kind of
it's not cut and dry.
one
You know,
size.
it's kind of like city council's got a lot to do,
Uh-huh.
right? Is the flag important enough to take up their time when there's all this other stuff? And so that's what we've been pushing. That yes,
Okay.
we think it is important enough. Look at how important it is to have a symbol that people get excited about. It enriches civic pride. Businesses will fly it, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. And Brian could talk more about the mechanics of how it might actually work.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, is it kind of one of those where it's open to public comment? Like, is it one where you can like bring people with you and kind of have them be like, yeah, I think we need this because X,
the way things would work here, at least, is after our public comment session, and we actually did a couple of those.
Okay, cool.
The mayor at the time, she's retired now, but back in October, the mayor at the time asked the city manager to have staff prepare like a feasibility report.
Okay.
What would it mean to adopt a new flag or a second flag? Because that's our official ask, right? Is not to, and I'm sure you're going to want to get into that, but we're asking, can we supplement the current flag with the existing one, with the new one? I mean, so then staff will have been looking at the legal aspects of it. How much would it cost? Which I would have to think wouldn't be very much, because it's just, I mean, they could do it with just a piece of paper, right? It's a resolution, a flag, and then maybe over time they put
have
money.
To buy some flags and hang them on.
You would think they would, yeah. But again, for a city, given city budget, and we could probably secure private funding for that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I don't think cost is really going to be the deal breaker on this. But what they're going to want to look at is the different options, and staff can present like, what would we do if we adopt this one? That's pretty simple to do. What if we wanted to get more public input, not just on an up or down, what do people think about it, but what about other options? Our case is a little bit unique somewhat because we have this option that's out there, and it's like, and we've lost track of how many flags. I mean, I know through our site we've sold or given away and sold over 150, and now there's a couple independent vendors just that we know about. Yeah, sure, the one you got right. And there's another local store here is making their own and selling them. So we don't really know. I'm going to guess between 150 and 200 that are out there in the community. And then just all the like people buying glassware and hats and shirts and different kinds of merch and making trinkets and things. So it would be, I guess maybe for some people, it feel like a little bit of a rug pull to say, well, okay, yeah, we're going to have a new flag, but not that one, or maybe that one, but maybe we'll have something different. But they could. So that's what they have to deliberate against, and I guess take public input on. Then there's the consideration of right.
I'm already thinking of like kind of ones to compare, contrast. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's good examples of cities that held design contests and they were successful, but in those cases, almost always they were starting from scratch without an existing popular design that people that had this grassroots effort that has sort of grown organically. There are then examples of cities where it was just like this. It was grassroots and someone designed it, took it up. You mentioned Bellingham. I think that's one. Provo, I think the same thing happened there. Springfield, Missouri, I really like their flag, and I think that's the way that one went. So it's not totally without precedent that someone just comes up with a flag, it gets popularized, and eventually it becomes official. So that's what we're asking. But if you want to know, okay, well, what does it mean for a process? Those are the kinds of things that council will need to deliberate over. And will there be public input? Yeah, for sure. So they might be able to do like a work session in which staff just presents the results of their research, and then council kind of kick it around. Then maybe they're going to want to have a hearing. Maybe they get out and talk to constituents in their own districts, see what people think. I don't know how long the gap would be between an initial discussion and a decision. I don't know if it would be super fast or if it would be months. Who knows? There's like Roland said, there's a lot on their plates. I think a flag is important, because it boosts the civic pride, it boosts city spirit.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they have some very concrete time-bound things that they also need to decide on specific issues. So we'll see. The other thing though is if they decide they want to adopt this flag or a new flag, do they replace the existing flag?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into was as far as like you touched on, it would not, as planned out anyway currently, it would not replace the current one, it would add to it. So was that a decision on your part? And if so, was it kind of is it kind of just strategic, like in the case of Utah? I know that's obviously state level, but I guess, like, what's the thought that went into that, and was that thought yours or theirs?
Yeah, it's a strategic thought that, you know, uh, there are people who don't like the idea of getting rid of tradition, and I can respect that.
Sure,
I
yeah,
don't
that's a better way to put
personally,
it.
you know, I don't love the old flag, so I'd be kind of fine to retire it personally and have one new flag. But it's an easier ask to just say, let's have a second flag.
Yeah.
And lots of cities have done that. And so, you know, we think you can fly both of them. And that doesn't, you know, cancel the old flag. It just you know, recognizes the limitations of the old flag and introduces a new symbol.
Yeah, remember we said near the beginning, again, I'm looking at it right now, but the symbolism on the current flag is something I think the designers got right, even though they weren't intending it to be a city flag.
Right.
So those two themes are important. So I like that aspect of the current flag. It's just that it wasn't going to take off in its current form.
There's a better
been out
way
for a while.
to hybridize those themes
Yeah,
than
exactly,
having just
exactly.
one have its complete
Right.
own side.
But you can still keep it around, and there could be people who continue to fly it or display it in the right context. It's on the wall hanging up at a popular, like, a breakfast place downtown, but you can stand there and look at it stationary and appreciate all the little things that they did.
Yeah.
There. That's fine. But for something that's going to be popularly used, we think this design is going to work better that way. And there's precedent, even right down the road. Charlotte did the same thing
Yes.
about around 1980. So
They got
had
the one
flag,
that's green with the like crown tiara, however it's
the crown, because it's the Queen City,
crown,
Charlotte. Yeah. That's their motto. Yeah. So they had their old flag is basically the Scottish saltire with the city seal slapped on top of it.
Oh, fun.
And same thing, it just wasn't popularly used.
Yeah.
You know, it's got a lot of detail. You don't make all that out when it's far away. So they adopted the second one. That's simpler, but they have two official flags.
Well, yeah, and to that point, like about usage as well. I imagine I have not been to or had to buy a flag that's dual-sided, city, state, or otherwise. But like, I imagine, since we had kind of touched on, you know, cost and everything, I imagine is it harder to get / more expensive to get a current Raleigh flag there? Like,
Yes.
I would say they're probably few and far between, and as a result, kind of expensive.
Yeah. So there's a guy down here making and selling them, civic flags here in Raleigh. Here's the thing about it. When you have a two-sided flag like this, and especially because that center band is white, okay. So first,
Yeah,
because of the
right.
amount of detail, you can't really make an applique flag like that. You'd have to embroider it, and it would just be so expensive and time-consuming to do it. It's not practical.
Yeah.
So they screen them. Okay, then when you screen it, you're limited in the material you can use, and I think a lot of them are actually cotton, what they're making. So it's screened on. But then, if you screen those two different images on two sides of one sheet of material, now, when that flag's up there flying in the sun, you see a silhouette of the reverse side showing through. So that doesn't work. So then you have to sew. So what you do is.
Plus, it's probably weighted very weird.
Well, okay, I want to talk about that too. Right.
Okay.
So okay, where do I want to start with this? So you have to take two pieces of material, screen them individually, and then sew a liner in between them to block the sun and block the shadow of the reverse side. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that makes it expensive. It also makes it heavy. And then it doesn't fly. Yeah. And when one of those gets wet, it's even worse. So I had one, and the first flagpole we got was just like a gift from our mortgage agent, I think, when we had an outrigger flagpole. Uh-huh. And I had this 1960 Raleigh flag on it. Mm-hmm. Got wet in a rainstorm, and it actually bent the flagpole. I had to go get a flagpole. Yeah. So this, and then if you go like at Lake Johnson, there's a flag, the current city flags. It's a city facility at the boathouse there, and you can see that the liner has become detached inside. So the flag is hanging there like a pillowcase with a wadded up sheet in it, just hanging down. Yeah, it doesn't work. You know, so that's the idea. So we like the symbolism, but practically speaking, it's expensive to produce, hard to maintain them and own one, and just kind of a frustrating experience, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I joke about being the ultimate dishonor, but really, if you are trying to honor the place where you live, having that be even like a possible outcome is not ideal. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, all right. So, I mean, we've touched on most of what I wanted to hit today. Is there any kind of last notes that you guys wanted to get into? I know, Brian, did you still want to talk maybe some heraldry stuff on Patreon for like a few after this, or?
We can do that. We can talk about just kind of like what I've been seeing with flag prices, just given inflation, and now we got tariffs and all that. So we can talk about that kind of thing. But I don't know, for main audience, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we've covered the main points, told the story, told why people are excited and why we're optimistic that Raleigh will have a new flag before long.
Yeah. I share in that optimism. I'm definitely rooting for y'all.
All right.
Hoping
So
it's
then
not
I would
a
just say-
forever thing like the people's flag or the Milwaukee people's flag.
Exactly.
Where
Yeah.
it's just kinda,
Yeah. I know.
come on, get to the finish line.
So I would just say, wish us luck. Check the website.
Yeah.
If you're here local, listening to this, make sure you
go
write
ahead
to your
and drop
counselor.
I'll have it up on screen for the viewers, but for the listeners, drop the what's the name of the website? Like, how can we volunteer? Can we
Sure.
how can we help basically
It's
get this
just
thing?
NewRaleighFlag.com. And there's an email address on there, but it's info@newRaleighFlag.com. Send us your ideas. And if you want to help out, let us know. So the way we say it is, this flag is community property. This is Creative Commons 0. It's out there. Anybody can use it. It's community property, but this is also a community effort getting it adopted. So any and all help and ideas are definitely welcome.
The bigger community, the better.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, good way to put it. Well, on that note, here, I'll go ahead and say for the show's plugs, if you've gotten this far, you probably already know them, but anywhere with an @sign, we are @flagged for content, for like the number. We have a link tree, just search linktree.com/flagged for content, all spelled out. That's got all of our, pretty much everything you could need to know, want to know about the show, including merch, guest request forms, things like that. So I think that's it for me, and if that's it for y'all, yeah, guys, I never know how to close these things out. Is there any way you can help me out here with some kind of phrase, anything like that?
Yeah, we're ready. It's flags down, beers up. Cheers.
Cheers, y'all. Catch y'all on the fly side.
Great.
Flag for Content is proud to be sponsored by Flags for Good. Go to flagsforgood.com for more information.